everybody. Welcome to the Lighthouse. Thank you guys for coming from New York, especially the New Yorkers here. How are you? Gedale, how's everything? Okay, so let's start with the sponsors. Today's sponsors are Anonymous for the Parnasa of Shmuel ben Rachel, Anonymous for the birth of Shlomo Baruch, and also to thank me for his life-changing classes, blah, 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 blah. I don't like to give myself. And thank you, Hashem, for giving me the energy. Refuah Shalema Menachem Mendel Bat Sarabatja. Also for Devorah Fege Bat Rezel, Refuah Shalema. Also we have a nightly sponsor, co-sponsor, for Refuah Shalema Chana Krena Bat Rachel. Okay, also, sponsors are Zvi Adler, in honor of Zev ben Chai Sarah, and Milka Fege Bat Saralea for the bracha of Hatzlacha in their new house and business. Amen. Josh Quishler for the Refuah Shalema of his father Yaakov ben Shoshana, Abraham Levi, in honor of his wife Leah Batzara. Anonymous for the Refuah Shalema of Shaul ben Berda, Ariane Man Bad Nayelet, in memory of Edward David Shaul ben Sarah. Anonymous also in honor of Amiran ben Uliel, another teen Jewish boy who his name has not been released, and it's held in Ayala in a prison in Israel. They should have a fair trial and be released immediately. Amen. Okay. Also in Refuah Shalema of Sharon bat Adela. Okay. All right. So I decided to change the topic a little bit. We're going to talk about limitations, and we're also going to talk about money, because we can't talk about money without talking about limitations. Because you can have all the money in the world, but have infections and it doesn't do anything for us. There's a specific reason when we say Amidah. The first thing we ask for is dot. Because if you don't have dot, what good is the money? It's like giving a millionaire, he doesn't know what to do with the money. The guy wins a lottery ticket and he loses it. You can't have health without dot. So the first thing we say when we pray in the Amidah is, please give me dot. Please give me perception. God forbid, if we don't have the right perception, then we have confusions and we have infections. So that's one thing that I specialize in helping people with their infections, in their thinking. And all the infections start in the thinking. Rabbi Nachman even says a lot about infections. Unfortunately, I myself went through a lot of infections in belief thinking. So that's how I got to this level today where I can give these classes and I am where I am today is only because I went through it already and I passed it. And I know how to fight it. So that's the only reason why I even have a shot that I can even do this, because I know what it is to be overtaken by thoughts and overtaken by beliefs and not live your life. And once you break from that and you realize you are not that, you have a whole different life. That's the good thing about it. So there's a lot of hope. It's not, oh, this is how I am, I was born like that. There's a tremendous amount of hope. That's what we want to start with. So first I want to start with clearly what Rabbi Nachman says. Because I don't, some people say, oh, where does he get this stuff? Where does it say this? It's not like I quote Tony Robbins the whole time. Rabbi Nachman's telling you very clearly that when a person falls from faith, he says, God forbid, the advice for him is he should speak words of faith. That means the beginning of a person's defeat starts in his thinking and his mouth. So when a person doesn't have the belief, that's why I get people today to focus, use your imagination for the right reasons. Everybody's imagining anxiety, crazy things happening, phobias, instead of imagining dreams, imagining what they want. And this is what God gave you imagination for. The problem is we're misusing the imagination, and we're putting limits. I said the only limit you should have is how long your in-laws should be in town for. That's the only limit. Besides that, a person should shoot for the moon. So he says when a person falls from faith, God forbid, the advice for him is he should speak words of faith with his mouth. Okay? In other words, he should utter full verbal proclamations of victory, of what he believes in. That means victory has to be spoken into existence. This is what Rabbi Nachman is telling you. It's not just going to happen. You have to first believe it's going to happen, and then it happens. And it first begins with a victory. This is not me. I want to explain to you. All my things that I say are from books from tzaddikim. It's not me just shooting from my hip, and this is what I believe in because I have energy. No, this is what Rabbi Nachman is telling us. The victory must be spoken into existence. Why are we not speaking victory into existence? Because of our Yetzer Hara, because of our old beliefs, because of our infections. Think about it. So he says here, what is more though than a verbal proclamation? Through speaking faith, you will eventually get to faith. That's what he's saying here. Through speaking, just speaking. I'm going to win. I'm going to declare victory. I believe that my prayers will be answered. I believe it's going to work out in this shidduch. I believe I'm going to get married. I believe. When I say the opposite, I declare doubt. I declare Amalek. So anything but victory. A person's not speaking victory all the time. He's speaking defeat. Realize it's a very powerful thing. So what do we need? We need discipline. We need discipline. I can't give you discipline. I can tell you what to do, but if you can't discipline on what a person's saying all day long to himself, that we can't do nothing with. And we know once we speak, God forbid, limitations, that's when Amalek, and that's when the Yetzirah proves to you what your defeat is. That's why all these phobias and all these things that people are going through is because they're not speaking victory. I've yet to see. I spoke so much victory, I lost. I've yet to hear the guy. Only the people that are speaking defeat, that are questioning. That's why Rabbi Nachman says, be careful for a little bit of chametz. Not even a little bit. You have a little bit of chametz in your brain. Next thing you know, it ferments in your brain and it takes over your life. He says you have to burn it. That means we have beliefs that we have to burn. And we have to question these and we have to look. What do you do for chametz when you clean? You look everywhere. Is there chametz here? Is there chametz here? Underneath the table? Everywhere a person looks. He's very careful with chametz. It's funny how people are so careful to clean for chametz. They even move out, they go to hotels. But for their mind, that's okay. I'll think anything, I'll believe anything, even if I don't like it. You understand? Why are we so careful with chametz? We're not careful with the chametz in our brain. And that's why the Jews needed matzah. They needed matzah when they got out of Egypt, because they had the chametz mind frame. They had a defeat mind frame. So they needed matzah. That's why they had to get out of Egypt. He says, listen, I'm going to get you out, but you can't get out of Egypt with a chametz mind frame. You need matzah. That's what this whole concept of Passover. It's not just a concept of being free, it's being free in your mind. Because when you're free in your mind, then you have vision. Shlomo HaMelech says, when there is no vision, the people perish. Very strong line. When there is no vision, the people perish. What happens? Once we speak defeat, we put limits on our lives. We're calling defeat. We have no vision. No vision, there's no hope, there's no renewal, and then you don't see the good that God's in your life. And we don't let Him in. That's why all the rabbis are saying, God is wherever you let Him in. Where do you let Him in? You let Him in your business, you let Him in your relationships, etc., etc., etc. We have to also realize that darkness comes to us. Why does darkness come to us? If you look at the ninth plague was darkness. It was for two reasons. First reason was for people to see the opportunities that they had in Egypt. Means there was gold in the Egyptians' houses, and the other opportunity, the other darkness, was to kill people and to kill people, the people that didn't want to get out of Egypt. So darkness in our life, it's either an amazing opportunity or it's to, God forbid, the opposite. Again, that's up to us. 20% made it. 20% had the desire and emunah to get out of Egypt. The 80% didn't want it. They left. They'd rather be slaves. And that's something we cannot have, a slave mentality. Rabbi Nachman even says here that the purpose of a person who's going through a struggle in his life is not so he can give up on his faith. Opposite. It's to give you character. Because you never appreciate the day until you experience a night in your life. When you experience a night in your life, you'll love those days. But if we don't appreciate the night, we'll never appreciate the day. So he says, the more effort concerning you invest in your challenges, in your darkness, finding the good, extracting the good, looking for the good, mastering the art of blindness, the more obstacles you overcome, the more kalim you're going to get on the way up. That's how it works. So, if I don't have that emotional strength in the darkness, I can't get the vessels when I go up. A darkness could be going on 10 bad dates. That's darkness. Will I ever find me? Will I ever find the guy? Is it ever going to be there? That's the darkness. So we have to understand the darkness God gives us is only because He wants to strengthen our vessels. Remember, I can't get into a relationship if I don't have the proper vessels. I can't be a provider for somebody else and a kid if I can't even provide for myself. You understand? So these opportunities that God gives us is only for the good. It doesn't look good, but it really is very good. Because you realize what you did wrong in the first marriage. We did realize what you did wrong in your failures. So that's the key. The key is we have to take the darkness and we have to look at these are experiences to build kalim. Not to destroy you. Not to destroy you. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says very clearly. He says, that the whole purpose of God is to make a person a co-creator, not to make him a burden. And look what he says here. He says God's whole advice. He says a person is created to be a co-creator. A person has to have a confidence. He says here, trusting in one above does not mean waiting for miracles. It means having confidence that whatever you're doing right now is what God put you to right now. A lot of people have decision fatigue. They don't know how to make a decision. So the key is, who knows if it's going to be the right decision? The key is either the decision you're making is leading you to experience or success. One of the two roads a person has to take. So not making decisions, not doing anything, that doesn't really help the guy. So we have to turn our visions into decisions. Remember, I can have all the vision in the world, right? But I'm not making any decisions. You understand? What good is that? A lot of vision, but no decision. It's worthless. So we need to, the vision and the decision is where you invoke trust. So vision gives you the emunah, the belief, but I'm just a belief. Okay, now get to work. Now you got to make a decision. You understand? If we don't do that, automatically we put limits on our lives. And we don't want, because if we have limits, we have infections. We're going to talk a little bit about infections today. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says something very beautiful. He's saying here that the Arizal says, and I've said this all the time, I said this constantly. He says depression, anxiety, and pessimism, which is, if a person doesn't have a ritual for success, or good proclamations, or talking success, automatically, if you don't go for what you want, automatically what you don't want is going to come. The Yetzirah comes to a person, unless he has a offensive strategy, automatically the Yetzirah is going to come to the person. And that's what he says here. Depression, anxiety, and pessimism damage the channels from above. That's what we're doing. We're actually damaging the spiritual channels from above. He says the Zohar explains that there's a lower world and there's an upper world. Our world is meant to receive from the higher world, but it's only according to your perception. You got that? Your state of mind. That's where the victory is. Where am I holding? What am I doing with the challenge? According to my state of mind is according to the vessels I produce in my life. So, if I don't have the dot to interpret things the right way, what happens to me, I'm going to get really stuck. And I'm not going to be able to draw that shefa down. Now, automatically, once a person has limitations, the first thing he's going to do is not be in his lane. He's going to start questioning the God. He's going to start questioning why things happen, to why this person's successful, why that person's successful. Why did you put a blockage in your life? So that's why he's saying here, if we are glowing with joy and vitality, it shines upon us, but God forbid. But if we wallow in depression and anxiety, then only we get the trickles. You get the leftovers. Everybody's getting candy, and you get the wrappers. It's up to us. Imagine a kid at the candy store, there's all this candy, he doesn't want to grab the candy, he gets the wrappers that the kid threw on the ground. That's exactly what happens. So the first thing I tell people, we got to change, we got to get out of this state, we got to get out of this funk, because you're not allowing the spiritual channel to match what you want down here. So it's very, very important that we can only do this by constantly renewing ourselves with the proper dot, with the proper intellect, etc. So remember, we have a vision, we have a decision. There's a great book called Fail Fast Often. And I love the book because it's Judaism 101. If I had that book when I was younger, I would have wanted to fail so quickly and get it over with. Because I can never get experience without failing. You understand? I don't want a midlife crisis at 45. I don't want a midlife crisis. I want to get it out of the way. You understand? If I know I have to fail fast often because the only way to get experience is through failure, then let me get it out of the way. I want to get the experience so I can have success. So he says in the beginning chapter something beautiful. He says that imagine somebody gave you, you inherited, say, $100 million they had for you in a bank account, but for 1 year, you have to be happy at a level 7. That means there's happiness at a level 10. But in order to get that money, the whole year, you have to maintain at least a level 7 happiness. What would you do? That's the same thing with our Creator. All we have to do is hang on in those rough challenges, and we get the shefa. So imagine how would a person, wouldn't he check himself? If I had this kind of money on the line, wouldn't I be very careful constantly what I'm thinking about? Wouldn't I be very careful what I'm doing? Because if it drops below a 7, I'm finished. That's the same way we have to relate to God today. So it was a very powerful line, and he said, "Wow, imagine if we did have that." So remember, Rabbi Nachman says it is forbidden to speak defeat. It is forbidden to speak these words out of our mouth, because these words out of our mouth create klipot, create the other side to come. We have to ask ourselves, we say, is business dead? Never going to find somebody? It's never going to get better? We're going to talk about the effects that happens when a person says that to his wife. Shem Yarachem, what Rabbi Rush says. So we have to be very careful how we interpret that. Okay, so that's the number one thing, and the number one thing you have to realize, the reason why we're going through such troubles is because we're kings and we have rags on. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. That the Lubavitcher said. We are walking like kings, but what happens? We put on rags. Why do we put on rags? For no reason. He's saying here that the Holy Shlomo of Karlin said that the greatest deception of the evil inclination, it makes you forget that you're a son of a king. That's what the Netzach makes you do a sin, and then it tells you you're nothing. Don't pray; it doesn't work. He knocks your belief system, and we know that all our actions are belief driven. That means for me to wake up in the morning at 4 or 5 o'clock to do his bodedut, I have to have a major belief saying every single word I'm saying counts. There's no way I'll be able to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning unless I have that belief in me that every single word that I'm saying, God is listening to me. Otherwise, I'd be like crazy. Go back to sleep. What makes a guy get up at 5 o'clock and another guy just says, it's not for me, I don't have time. It's the belief. The belief, whether it's going to work or not. So what does the Netzach say? Your words are worthless. You've tried already, doesn't work, nothing. That's the Netzach's game, to talk defeat. And once defeat comes, you speak it, etc. So what is he saying here? I've heard from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was literally the one who started Chassidut. There wouldn't be Chabad, Breslev, nobody without the Baal Shem Tov. That's the pioneer. The Baal Shem Tov was literally had Chassidut. What happened before the Baal Shem Tov came to the world? The biggest heretic came to the world, which was Shabbatai Tzvi. That means the Jews had the biggest darkness in history. They had a false Messiah that became an Arab. You imagine the guy people think he's a Mashiach. Next thing you know, he converts to an Arab. So they were completely down and out. There was no hope. There was no vitality. And then the Baal Shem Tov came to the world, and he brought a new rejuvenation of prayer. He brought a new vitality into spirituality, and he focused more on a relationship to God, which is what I speak about today. Many of my classes, get the relationship focus. Get a good relationship with God. Because if you have a good relationship and you have good communication, there won't be an end. But if you have a relationship with no communication, one problem, it's over. You understand? Your quality of relationship is based on your quality of communication. So if you have a good communication with your spouse, you can go through rough times. Ups and downs, you're hanging in there. But if you have no communication, they say the number one cause of divorce is not infidelity, it's communication. They don't see eye to eye. No communication. No communication. What do you think the number one thing with a person, with God and His Creator? God and us. No communication. Something goes wrong. Why'd you do this to me? How come this guy's happy? I'm wearing a wig. They're not wearing a wig. She's wearing pants. And look how successful she is. And look at me. And then what are you doing? You're saying, there's an injustice in this world. Forget it. I'm done. See what's going on? This is the pattern. It's the same pattern. Something goes wrong. There's a trigger. You question that you're more religious than the other person. And how come that guy has more than you do? And you don't understand the system. Why should I do this now? And there goes your faith. There goes everything. There goes it all. It's the same pattern. I can call it every single play. It's like literally the same trigger. Get out of your lane, reckless driving, questioning the way Hashem runs the world, and big accidents. That's how it happens. Every single time. That's why the 9th commandment, the 10th commandment, is stay in your lane. Don't covet. Don't question God. That's the 10th commandment. It's a commandment. It's not just a Baba Maisa. So the Baal Shem Tov says that being too humble can actually impede your service from serving God. Because you won't believe. You won't believe. Oh, who am I to pray? Who am I to talk as Bodhidu? Look what I've done. Being too humble in that manner can destroy you. Because you won't believe. You won't believe you're worthy. If I don't believe I'm worthy, I'm not going to make the effort to go and work on myself. Okay? So what does he say here? He says, if a person believed that every single word he said, every time Rabbi Nachman says, in lesson 49, it's very powerful. He says, every time you fight a negative thought, you fight that dalid and becomes a hay, it's like you reinvented creation. You reinvented the world. You imagine how powerful that is? That a person could literally live every single day and see opportunities that other people are like, oh, how was your day? Same as yesterday. What is that? Same as yesterday. You're not seeing creation. You're not letting God in and seeing creation. That's one of the things I say every single day in my Hizbo to do. Every day is a new day. Every single day is a new opportunity. There's so much opportunity. I speak victory. All day long I'm speaking victory. So I don't even think about defeat. And guess what happens? You attract victory. That's what happens. But you can't sit there and speak defeat and expect to win. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen ever. So that's why Rabbi Nachman says it's better to be a fool and believe everything than to try to figure everything out. Better you be a fool. I even asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I'm very close to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Pinto, a lot of these rabbis, I'm saying, listen, how much, because I understand some people go through tough times, and it is from a previous Gilgul. I said, what percentage of those people do you think are that they have a lot of sorrows from a previous lifetime that they have to rectify? He says about 10%. He's able to read Neshamot, and he's able to see people's purposes. But he said the other 90%, it's the person's mind frame. So who knows if you're that 10%? Because you could say, maybe this is the life I was given. But maybe you're not. You have a 9 in 10 chance that you're not that person. But what happens when we think like that, then we say, maybe I had to pay a past Gilgul, maybe I had to do this, maybe I had to do that. But that's only 10%, and guess what? You'll never know. You'll never know if you were that 10%. So why would you live your whole life like that? So Rabbi Nachman says, it's better to be a fool and believe everything. He says, Rabbi Nachman says that he got to the greatest level in his life through one way. Simplicity. What does simplicity mean? Going on a date. Oh, nice person, I like her, I don't like her. Oh, every day it's the same thing. It's all the same guys. That's not simplicity. That's complication. That's limited belief. It's even when a person starts going, oh, there's no way it's going to work out. And you go in the day, you think it's going to work out? Same thing. This is toxic speech. Toxic. We can't talk about money if you can't even talk. If you can't even think about victory. If you can't even think of success. So this is what Rabbi Nachman's telling us here, and he's saying here clearly that being too humble, that means if a person thinks that he and his mitzvahs are worthless, he won't be careful to do them. He'll be distracted. He'll be on his phone. Sometimes I go to synagogue and I see people on their phone when they're praying. I said, why? He must really not believe in his prayer, because if you believe you're shooting a gun and you have a phone, how could you possibly shoot a gun and having a phone at the same time? So you're just here. You don't really believe. If you believed in your prayer, there's no way in the world you would have a phone when you pray. There's no way in the world, right? I guess you don't believe in it. So why are you here? That's another question. Why are you even here? You understand? We don't stress the concentration like Rabbi Nachman says. Concentration is made by controlling a person's mind and his heart together, and that's how he's able to make the proper vessels. That's one thing. Concentration. Specifically, when you want to go pray, you want to sit there and get the clutter out of your head. That's why we speak so much about doing his bodhidut before you pray, doing it in the morning, because you don't want to sit there and have these negative thoughts the whole day, and they tire and they exhaust a person out. Okay? That's one kind of limitations we want to talk about. Second kind of limitations. This is from Rabbi Rush. It's not my chidush. He's saying here, and this I've seen a lot. There's a lot of people are struggling shalom bayit finances. Usually there's fighting in the house. There's a shalom bayit problem. It's almost the cat and the mouse. Almost guaranteed. They're both always the same thing. And we know that peace is the vehicle for blessing, and it says that one fight chases away 100 opportunities. 100 opportunities. So a guy could say, I'm right, my wife is wrong. But what are you thinking about right now? I'm thinking about the 100 opportunities I'm losing. You're thinking about being right. That's not a game for him to win. That means if we don't have Torah in our life, then what do? Argue. I'm right, you're wrong. Who cares? Who's right? I'm going to sit there and get into this mud and lose my 100 opportunities, and I'm going to chase away because of being right? That's what we have to understand. All the cause of a pain in a person's life is one thing. It's the ego, which is the Zohar. The ego is the cause of the pain. If you want healing, you can't do it from the ego. You got to go in your soul state. Your soul forgives. Your soul has compassion. Your soul has love. It doesn't care who's right. It doesn't care who's right. Only the ego says, I'm right. But you're not a visionary because you're not looking at the missed opportunities. You don't value your time. You don't value your time. That's why one of the greatest books, 7 Habits of Successful People. Begin with the end in mind. That means, what do I want out of this? I want peace. Who cares who's right? So he says, a person's livelihood from above. That's again why I'm encouraging guys to get married. Because as long as you're still hanging out and fooling around, you're in AAA, you're never going to get to the major leagues. You're never going to get the abundance of your soul because your soul was cut into 2. That means you're living halfway. You're living half. Only when you get married does it become 1. The guys should be running after the girls to get married instead of the girls running after the guys. But they don't have the dot. No dot. They'd rather be distracted than focus on what's good for them. That's why I'm screaming to this all the time. But they don't have the dot. What are you going to do? And why do people suffer? One reason, no dot. Gemara says, the only suffering a person goes through because he doesn't have the dot. That's why I told people, I got married in 60 days after a horrible divorce because I know it's a bigger risk to go in the market and fool around and do that because my soul's at stake. So what do you want? The person has a choice. And your life comes down to your choices and your decisions. What do you want? You want to get distracted? You're not feeding your focus. So what does Rabbi Nachman say here? A person's money mainly comes... This is from the Zohar. This is not from Oprah. This is from the Zohar. A person's money comes through... This is not the Oxygen Channel, right? This is from the Zohar. You can put it in the ground. If the Zohar says something, Rabbi Nachman says, these are sources. This is not some made-up thing. A person's money mainly comes through a person's spouse. This is in the Zohar. This means a man's money comes through the radiance of his wife's soul. Let's talk about what that means. Okay? Once I read this book and understood Rabbi Nachman's teachings, I changed my whole game plan on Shalom Bayit. Whole game plan changed. Because I don't want to suffer at work. I'd rather give in to the fight and not suffer. I have the option. Again, this comes down to that. In other words, her soul, these are the lights of money that comes from the nefesh. That means money and the soul come from the same place as the nefesh. Okay? In other words, when a woman is content and satisfied, her soul expands. You understand? When a person makes his wife happy, she expands, she's happy. So what happens? Her soul expands, the place where money expands, and he gets the blessing. What happens when you show limitations and you argue about pettiness? You know what happens? Shrinks. Now she's saying, maybe he's not going to give, I have no more light. So now you're worried about money, she's worried about money, times 10. Good luck. There goes your Shalom Bayit, there goes your Parnasa, there goes it all. So Rabbi Rush was talking about that a lot of guys, they tell their wife, quiet, just have a Emunah, pray. No. It's your job to take care of the business. You're supposed to give light. She's not supposed to call the electrician and ask, go fix the light. You're supposed to go and figure out why there's a limitation in your life. That's what Rabbi Rush is saying. He's saying it's up to the man to figure out why he's not giving the proper light and why his wife is not expanding. When his wife expands, happy wife, happy life, there's the life for it. And I'm not promoting women or men. I'm giving you the sources for a person to win. So he says, therefore, there's no greater mistake than constructing the light of your wife's soul, because you're constructing yourself. And then what happens? You start fighting, and the fighting leads to Shalom Bayit problems, and the Shalom Bayit problems leads to et cetera, et cetera. Again, there's cases for divorce, but if a man knows everybody has a role. There's a reason why the guy's a center and another guy's a point guard. He's not supposed to get rebounds. He's not supposed to get assists. Everybody has a role in life, and you have to know what your role is in every marriage. And you have to know where am I holding here? Why am I suffering? If you do his bodedut, you get answers right away. You understand? His bodedut gives you answers. You don't have to go through confusion. So when you have no vision, you have confusion. If you don't know what the problem is, then all you have is infections and confusions and questions. And we don't want that. That doesn't get us anywhere. And we know all the answers are for us. So you're probably treating an issue that has nothing to do with how to fix your problem. The problem is being constricted. So now what happens is a lot of women, they lose emunah in their husband's ability to provide. So there goes the emunah, there goes the soul it shrinks. So that's why there's such a light that a person has to constantly give. He has to be a giver. Woman is a moon, man is a sun. He has to be a provider, not just financially, but emotionally. When that doesn't happen, the wife shrinks to her soul. It's like a tree. And then you don't get the benefit of that. You understand? So, kol v'chomer, not being married. It's even an issue. You got listen, you can't find the right person right away, but at least be actively looking and do everything you can to starve your distractions. So what happens? If a person he becomes very petty with his wife about every little thing and watches everything he does, she eventually will be contracted and she will not be happy. Doesn't mean that she's out for them. No, that's her essence. That's her essence. You have to understand what her essence is. Her essence is drawn from that same source as shefa, as money, etc. So when she sees, especially if she sees, the wife sees the guy looking other places, then she sees the light is going somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, she'll attack him because he focused on another light. You got me? And then, there goes the problem. So then the guy can come home and he could say, I can't do this woman anymore. It's too much for me. I can't take it. So what happens is really him that didn't give the light the proper way. Okay? So we might, if we don't have this dot, unfortunately, we can really, and honestly, in most of the cases I know, this is the issue. It starts with a majoring in minor things is the greatest thing. Instead of making your wife happy, you're majoring in stupidity. Majoring, why'd you spend this? Why'd you spend that? You major in minor things, you have a small mind, we get nothing at the end of the day. So that's very, very important. Again, it's not to sit there and we just have to know, okay, I have to work on it. Don't be upset about it. You understand, I didn't have the dot. Remember, I've been in Breslev for 18 years. I've listened to 20,000 hours of tapes and I have 7 Breslev rabbis. So I make sure that I'm focused and I get all my answers. Because at the end of the day, you can toil one way or the other. I'd rather toil in learning than toil at work. Either way, you're going to toil. You understand? A person's born to toil. You can either toil this way, then the other toil will go away. Or you can toil at work and not have no toil in Torah. You're going to have that stress. I have to deal with stress regardless. I'd rather channel it for spiritual growth than channel it to headaches. Dealing with returns all day long. You understand? So, we speak about Parshas Haman, and we speak about the second. Let's first talk about blood also. We know one of the commandments, blood. Blood is also for us as an opportunity. We know blood, the word is dam. What it means? Dam means blood, and it also means money. So we know, even if you remember in the economy in 2005 or 2006, I don't remember, nobody was lending money. What did everybody call the assets? Toxic assets, right? There was no movement. Nobody was lending, banks weren't lending, people weren't getting mortgages, so the properties didn't move. They became toxic, correct? That's the same thing as us. If we develop toxic thoughts, they get stuck and they dwell. That's what Rabbi Nachman says in lesson 4. He says something beautiful. He says, we have to deal, when blood is not moving. Why is blood not moving in our lives? Because we get stuck on phobias, negative beliefs. Those eventually become infections, Rabbi Nachman's telling us. That means, if I have an infection in one part of my body, you know what's going to happen? The rest of the body, the rest of the blood in the body, is going to go to that area of the infection. Correct? That infection all of a sudden brings. If I don't have emunah, if I don't have trust, that's the infection in my work. Here comes shalom bayit, here comes this problem, here comes anger, here comes all of the other messes in my life for one problem. See the problem? People are trying to fix other issues when they don't realize the problem is the infection. What's the infection? The infection is not believing, not trusting. That's the major infection. So now Nachman says here that healing a wound first begins, you have to open up the wound first. You can't just try to heal a wound without opening the infection. We have to do, the first thing we need to do is we need to see where is the infection in our lives. I would say that a lot of people, one of the biggest infections, I think we have 6,000 people in the WhatsApp group. I've seen hundreds of patients in my rehab, etc. And one common trend across the board is failure, I'm a failure. Instead of saying I failed, I'm a failure. They don't separate the two. You understand? They don't go into a new marriage. Oh, I got divorced. I failed my first marriage. Maybe it'll happen again. So all of a sudden they say, I'm the failure. So they lose their self-worth. See? I told you, failures are not a problem. They're experience. So that's what we say. Just say you have a master's in communication, master's in relationships. Don't say I have a master's. I have more experience. Making the separation between that and that. That means if we get stuck on these limited beliefs in the past, right? They become infections, Rabbi Nachman say. And we have these phobias in our head, and these phobias, unfortunately, don't allow us to live life. They take over your life. It becomes, for example, I know a person, she grew up in a very hostile, we're not going to say the joke, everybody knows what I'm talking about, a very hostile, limiting belief household, and their parents were constantly worrying about money all the time. So the minute she's dating, all of a sudden, are you sure? Where do you work? What do you do? She's already getting the guy's credit score. Before on every date, she's Equifax. She's running the guy's credit, and the guy's, I barely met you. How could you run my credit? I barely met you. She had such a fear that because her parents had that issue, she had that belief in her head that it's going to be like that. Make sure your husband, he can run out of money, and this and this. So she's living an anxiety life for no reason. This guy has nothing to do with the way you were living. Same thing. We pick up these beliefs when we're small. These negative beliefs based on your childhood that eventually they can sabotage relationships. Or people went through childhoods that had so many highs and lows that they can't be in a marriage without having highs and lows. So what we'll do when things are calm? Self-sabotage. Let's sabotage things for no reason because things are too calm. If something's calm, maybe it's not real. These are the things that we have to realize. Unfortunately, it's all old beliefs. We are not that. So these are the biggest infections that we have today. So what do we need to do? We really need to dig down deep because this infection, unfortunately, doesn't allow a new day to us. And it creates infections. And what happens? What are the infections? They clog up the whole body. One of the reasons, it says, when Moshe Rabbeinu raised his hands, they won the war. When he lowered his hands, they lost. So what happens once we have infections, the first thing that go is we have no vitality. We have no renewal. We have no refreshness, which is what you need. And what happens? Your hands go down, you become slumber, and there goes a person's, his state becomes very negative, very pessimistic. So that's something we have to understand. So what does he say here? That the blood flows and circulates through the body's arteries and reaches an area of dysfunction. What does Rabbi Nachman say here? This is the dysfunctional thinking. These are the dalits in a person's life. Dysfunctional thinking. We need to question our thinking. We need to question everything about our thinking patterns. We need to question, why do I do this? Why do I procrastinate every time? Why do every time I see this person, I get nervous? Why do I I need to go into my life and take a video of one day, and I need to be a third party, and look, why do I do this when I do that? Why do I procrastinate? Why do I do these things? And if you realize, I did this, by the way. When you realize, oh, I know why I do that. I do that because of an old belief. Okay, new belief. Talk to Hashem about that belief. Change that infection. I can't be free unless I have all these, unless I go to the infection and fix it. Another segula Rabbi Nachman says to clean blood out is charity. That means before you have a specific struggle with something, what should you do? Give money. Because what does money do? Money's blood. Blood moves the blood around. You donate blood. You donate money. What are you getting when you get blood? New blood. Your nefesh, your soul, is in your blood. You get a new renewal. So when we give charity, if I'm stuck somewhere in my life, first thing I do, here you go. I'm giving tzedakah because there's I made a dysfunction. Something I did, I made a mistake, and I created a cloggage in that area. So what do I need to do? I need to give tzedakah. That's why it says tzedakah will save you from death. Because what happens? Once the blood becomes stagnant, it becomes toxic, and toxic acids, toxic blood, nothing moves. And that's where sicknesses come. So what do we need? That's why gravity to people have to move. Move the blood around, move the thinking around, move etc. So this is all we have to realize. The first thing I tell people, I see the same pattern every time. For example, I know a lot of people that are going into business deals, and right before the deal's about to close, they worry, oh my God, it's not going to go through. I said, are you crazy? Why are you saying this? Why would you focus on something you don't want to happen? Because he said it the past 10 times. So if you go there and you say the deal's not going to happen, right before the deal, guess what happens? The deal doesn't go through. So you can sabotage your whole success in life because of these dysfunctional patterns. And if a person doesn't spend time in himself to where is my dysfunctional pattern? Where do I need to do? Where do I need to fix? Once you fix that pattern, you free up the blood circulates, and then you have new vitality. Tzedakah is one way to do that. That's why tzedek means justice. When you add the hey, tzedakah, it takes it from tzedakah, tzedek, to hey, tzedakah. What are you doing with the hey? You're bringing Hashem back. It's very important. Another thing that I've been seeing, today is Parsha Zaman this week, is Rabbi Nachman says here in the Likutei Halachot that money is nothing but a test. Sometimes we say business is business, Moses is Moses. One has nothing to do with the other. Right? A lot of people believe that. I go to shul, but at work, I got to do what I got to do. Absolutely not. Saying here, God said to Moshe, behold, I am raining down from you bread from heaven. Let the people go out and gather what they need for each day. There's a big lesson here, what he's saying here. Each day, let them gather. What does that mean, each day? To say each week, each month, that God wants to be your sustainer. He doesn't just want to be your creator. That means you need to create a relationship to sustain each day. Because if I don't focus on each day, then I have anxiety, etc. So each day means I'm getting tested to see, am I present? How am I doing business? Am I present? Why are you so tired? No, yesterday I didn't make any money. What does that have to do with today? So if you live life like this, you see the world brand new, your relationship brand new. There's a great quote. If you do what you did in the beginning of the marriage, there won't be an end. If you did what you did in the beginning of the relationship, there won't be an end. Why is there an end? Because we don't do what we do in the beginning of the relationship. When you get excited, you lose the excitement. We lose the excitement. So he says here, so I can test them. And we know lechem, the word lechem comes from the word milchama, which is war. What does milchama also means? If you want to win the war, you got to be a melech ma, humble. Humble. What is humble? If I fail 7 times, I get up. What is humble? Patience. I could say my life, one of the things I had to work on is patience. Patience was my killer. And that was my major infection in my life, was patience. And I lost so many opportunities in my life because I didn't have patience. When we don't have patience, you know what it becomes? Anger. What is that? What is after patience? Anger. So what is a person not patient saying, Hashem, I don't like the way things are going at your pace. We need to make it at my pace. If I could tell you, sometimes doing nothing and just waiting was the key to everything. Just waiting. Waiting for praying and then waiting. Not praying, looking at the scoreboard. Oh, did it change? That's called a transaction. Praying and being patient. Because patience is emunah. And because when we sin, we don't have patience. Now we have to wait with patience. You see the problem? See why patience is so important? A lot of people, remember, part of the infection is not you don't get new blood first. First you need the cleansing. What is the cleansing? You have to go settle debt. I spoke the other day about why why is it so difficult to do tshuva today? It's because the minute you do tshuva, you're getting now. When I do tshuva and I start having a moon and bitachon in my life, all my anxiety will go away. Now, what's the price for not having anxiety the rest of your life? It's amazing. It's a different life, correct? But how about the 15 years I had anxiety? What do I do with those years? We got to settle the debt. Now, what happens with that debt? You got to settle. You got to settle. So sometimes you have yisurim when a person starts going in the right direction. They get confused. They're saying, look, I tried going in the right direction, and all of a sudden my world collapsed on me. No, it's settling the debt. We can't, what are we doing? Because God loves justice. Why is it fair that you should all of a sudden decide one day, I feel great, I'm going to do tshuva, I'm going to do his bodhidut, I'm going to stop with these girls, and another guy's put in 10 years. Why should you get a free pass in one day? The system's not made like that. So the system's made, okay, I understand you want to come close, but how do I know you're going to stay? God says, how do I know you're going to stay? Maybe tomorrow you're going to go. Maybe you're going to leave tomorrow. So the beginning is tough. That's why all beginnings are very tough. I see a lot of times people get into the classes, they get excited, and then bye-bye. I see it. Because they started getting to the truth, but the Yetzer says, okay, what are we doing with all these? What are we doing with the settlement? Here comes this problem, here comes that problem. That's why it's funny how Nisim says that when he started fixing a Shalom Bayit, his wife turned it up 10 times on him. His wife, instead of he's doing fixing his Shalom Bayit, all of a sudden his wife is attacking him 10 times more. Because now he's fixing it. You see? When in the beginning you do something, but you have to settle the debt. Now, you can settle the debt at 10 cents on the dollar through happiness and accepting it with love. And say, I know I did wrong, I'll settle the debt. Or you can not want the 10 cents on the dollar, then it becomes 20 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, and then a person quits. This is the number one problem that we're having, is that people are not understanding that. Anytime you come closer to God, you're going to get tremendous amount of resistance, because for the light that you want, you don't have the proper kalim, vessels, to contain that light. So if we would give you too much light, which light is from God, you would break. You wouldn't be able to handle that light. You don't have the vessels. So we have to pray, God, help me have the strength in the darkness to deal with this whatever nisyon that I have. I never forget, the beginning I started going to Uman, my whole life flipped around, 360 degrees. Completely flipped around. I said, maybe I went to the wrong place. What is this? I go to this. I was happy before. I wasn't, no headaches. Oh, but you're not in the truth. You want the truth? Okay, let's settle the debt. And here comes the debt. So what do we need to do? We need to have resilience in those dark times. And there is a waiting time. I can't say it's the same for everybody. One guy's been off the derech for 10 years. He's going to pay a little more debt than the other guy. Another guy's off the derech for 1 year. He's got a different deal. Everybody gets a different deal, period. But you have to settle the deal, because God loves tzedek, but He loves Israel more. But He still loves tzedek, and you have to go through it. Same thing with Tikkun, fixing the bread for the guys. They all of a sudden they fix the bread. Next thing you know, 3 girls. I'm not dating you. Before he got girls, now he can't get girls once he's fixing himself. How does that make any sense? This is the reason why. But it's a test. It's temporary. So we have to know what the rules are. So anytime a person goes through a new level, he has resistance on that other previous level, because he's reaching a higher level. Now this is very tough, and you have to have emotional stability, and you have to have emotional stamina, because some of the dark days will conquer you, and they'll take over you, some of these dark days. But you have to realize the day passes. But you're going the right way. This is why so many people, they get hot, and this is why the Jews had to wait. They got out of Egypt. They were in the worst level, 49th level in Egypt. Why? How could they deserve the Torah and get out of Egypt? Why did they deserve it? So what happens? They got out of Egypt. They got the freebie. Okay, now you have to wait 49 days in the Omer. You can't go to Shavuot without waiting the 49 days to fix your character traits. Why do you think the 49 days? Each day was fixing a particular character trait that they had a problem with. Same thing with us today. So that's what we need to do. We need to realize, once we get rid of these infections, Then there's cleansing, depending on the infection. After that, then you get rid of the negative belief. Then you break out. But it requires patience, it requires self-introspection, and it requires sometimes, unfortunately, a little bit of pain. But I tell people at the end of the day, pain will set you free. Don't run away from it. It's good for you. It'll set you free. Don't run away. All right? That's today's class.